there are 10 things that I recently saw how to build a productivity system. In this video, I'm going to talk you through my trident method.
Ali's given years of productivity advice, but it's hard to know where to start. And that made me think, out of the hundreds of tips he's given, what are the most important things he does that makes him so productive? After looking into his routine by going through his newsletters and his videos, I've figured out his best methods and used them in a stepwise approach to boost my productivity during medical school exam season so that I could study better and still fit time for going to the gym, practicing the piano and socializing with friends. And I wanted to be as productive as possible, so I made a few changes to the routine to make it even more productive and added a separate challenge of my own. And if you want to know the results without watching the whole video, just know that it's been 62 days since I started this 30-day routine and I'm still going with it because it's genuinely changed how I live my life, even if it maybe isn't really 10 times Ali's productivity. So I'll go through exactly what I've done and what I've learned from his routine so that you can start from today. So here's how I started Ali's productivity routine. I began at day 0. Because what he emphasizes as part of his productivity routine is to separate planning from doing by planning what you'll be doing in the next few days, weeks, and even months. And there's 2 key rules he mentioned that I had to stick by as part of this scheduling system as I eased myself into this part of his routine in the first week. So the first rule is to block out a designated amount of time in the day for one particular task and use that time for that one thing only. And the second rule is to know your most important task, your daily highlight, and make that your goal for the day. So here's what it ended up looking like for me. I'd wake up at 6:59 AM every day, and after getting clean and having my protein shake, I'd be ready to start studying at 7:25 AM. At 11:30 AM, I head to the gym, and by the time I'm back and have lunch, it's usually around 2 PM. And then from 2 to 3 PM, I practice some piano, and for the next 4 hours until 7 PM when I have dinner, I'll study some more. After 7:45 PM, I'd do a mix of replying to people, studying Japanese, or maybe just relaxing a bit. Then from 8:45 to 11 PM, I'd study some more, and then get ready for bed to sleep by 11:40 PM. And throughout this whole thing, I kept up with my own challenge to make this routine even more productive, and I'll get to that in a bit. But the results of these 2 things alone was massive for me, and it makes sense why. Because starting with the first rule, I realized that the calendar system is there to make me more intentional with how I use my time. Because before trying out Ali's routine, I just had a rough idea of what I wanted to get done in the day, whether that was studying, going to the gym, or practicing the piano. But you know what this meant. It meant that without a strict schedule, there would be gaps in the day where there isn't anything in particular going on, and in those gaps, I'd sort of just float around. And in that time, minutes go by doing pointless things that adds up to over an hour a day. So the daily schedule meant that I didn't really have to think about what I had to do on the day. All I had to do was follow my calendar. And that cut down a lot of that time floating around, not sure of what I had to do next. And the thing is, we've all had this before. Like at school or university, you had scheduled classes and you most likely went to those classes because it was there for you to do. So adding it back to your routine would help bring that structure back. And now the second rule, the daily highlight, I think had an even bigger effect, where, as suggested by Ali, I'd ask myself, what is the single most important thing I need to do today? But I adapted this to make it a bit better for productivity by making sure that I get this daily highlight done as early on in the day as possible. Because even though I wasn't used to studying so early on in the day, after about a week of prioritizing studying first since it was exam season, I noticed a massive benefit from doing this first. I realized that after shifting around to make the most important thing done first, I ended up actually wanting to be more productive later on in the day. Because I feel like I built momentum from having such a productive morning that it gave me the energy to want to maintain that momentum for the rest of the day. So just from having a productively structured schedule, I think I began to understand that productivity isn't just about doing as much as you possibly can. It's about using your time with intention and using it as best as you can by prioritizing what's most important for you. So I think even though this was just the first week of the routine, I was off to a really good start. Now before I go through the next few things I added in the second week of the productivity routine, I'll go over how my extra challenge went first. And this challenge was to track every single habit of mine, no matter how small it was, so that I can save on the minutes and even seconds that adds up to a lot of time over the day. And so initially, I noticed that I wasted a lot more time than I'd realized. Things like checking my phone when I had a notification, or getting distracted and losing focus when I was doing a task, or even walking up and down my room. These were all just minutes in the moment, but compounds to a lot more over time. And it wasn't just about spending more time on my phone, it was about not doing things as efficiently as possible, making things that should have taken, let's say, 1 hour take an hour and 10 minutes. And I was trying to maximize productivity, so this wasn't okay. So when I took note of these habits, I I check back on them the next day so that I'd be extra conscious of those bad habits. And basically the next day I cut down on more than half of these bad habits straight away, making me immediately more productive in basically every dimension of my life. Like not just for studying, but also for health and fitness, where I'd reduce my bad habit of having snacks. And so I realized when you write down every little thing you do, you understand just how much happens on autopilot mode without you even realizing. But by bringing your awareness to it, you get back that control over the habit, and that makes it a lot easier for you to remove. And this is genuinely one of the most effective things I've done in my life. So I've added a very simple Notion template in the description box below for you to use. And this habit tracking was already helping me for the next two parts of the routine that I was going to add that Ali mentioned, which is the Pomodoro technique and batching. And okay, so I've already tried the Pomodoro technique and I realized it wasn't going to help me be as productive as possible, so I changed it a bit to maximize productivity. But if you didn't know, the Pomodoro technique is a time-based focus technique where you focus for intervals of 25 minutes and then take a break for around 5 minutes. And once you've repeated that for a few cycles, you take a longer break. And this is scientifically backed to improve mental fatigue and improve attention span. But my version of this involves progressive overload. Sort of how at the gym you climb up in weights or reps and get physical strength. For focusing on a task, I'd increase my focus time and drop my break time as I get better at focusing, and that improves my cognitive strength. And I'd have a target of how much I want to cover in that studying time, like let's say 100 questions on cardiology. So I think you can see how the habit tracking already helps. By being aware to avoid any bad habits, I'd naturally have a better focus and less of a need to take breaks. So what this meant for my tasks was that I didn't need as many breaks for studying Japanese, for practicing the piano, or studying for medical school, and I got into flow state more often. And I think part of this has to do with Parkinson's law, which is the idea that work expands to fill the time scheduled for its completion. Like if you schedule 2 hours to do one thing, then you'll take the whole 2 hours to do that one thing. So by using my version of the Pomodoro technique and by giving a limited amount of time to get through a topic, I had a healthy amount of stress to get through that work before my break. And this is when I had an idea. I could easily combine this technique of focusing with the other big part of Ali's productivity routine, which was the act of batching things together. Because for me, I feel like it would have been difficult to do things in one-off batches like Ali suggests, because it was exam time, so I asked my friends questions throughout the day and I had to keep up with emails for any changes that happened with exams. And an important thing I realized from following his productivity routine was that some parts are a lot more flexible and can be personalized to what suits you more. Like for me, I decided that during my breaks between focusing on a task, I'd use that as my clusters of batching time, where I'd reply to people, check emails, play with my cat, or go for a walk. And doing this made a distinct separation between my focus time and time for other lesser priorities without completely dissociating the two. Like how at the gym between workout sets, I take a break for a minute or two and then get back to it. That was the vibe I got from doing this, and it worked really well. And if anything, it made me waste even less time because it made me prioritize who to check in on or what to do in that small pocket of time, rather than scheduling in 30 minutes to batch reply to people or check emails, which might not even take 30 minutes. But in any case, the idea of batching or cluster batching is to stop yourself from trying to multitask, because multitasking is just doing multiple things with suboptimal focus. And I did notice a better efficiency with how I'd use my time with this method of batching, because now I know how to use those random moments of free time instead of getting lost in the bunch of unexpected 2 minutes that you get throughout the day. And again with the habit tracking, initially with the cluster batching, I did run over a few minutes here and there, but then over time I became aware to just not do that, or found simple solutions, like leaving my phone in the same app if I didn't finish up what I was doing and then getting back to it in the next break. And before I get into what I did for the third week, before I got fully used to the whole routine in the fourth week, I think it was important to realize that this stepwise or ladder approach I had to Ali Abdaal's productivity routine was the right way for long-term productivity. Like I said, I'm still following this routine after 62 days and I plan to keep it going. So if you try it, ease yourself in rather than jumping fully in. And even then, I don't think any of this is unheard of, even though it can literally change how you live your life. And I think the takeaway from this is that it doesn't have to be complicated. It just has to be a simple system that works. And that's exactly what Ali does better than everybody else. He's extremely consistent with his straightforward productivity system. Like whether that was him starting his business during medical school, making YouTube videos as a doctor, and also writing a book alongside all of this. He kept it all going. And he said that one thing that helped him do this was making productivity enjoyable, because the effort required for productivity is the biggest barrier to it. And if you can make it feel like productivity is an effort, then it becomes easy for you, just as I can watch TV all day or play games all day. And what he does to make productivity enjoyable is something I've been doing already for a few years that I properly integrated from the third week of this productivity routine. And it helped me be productive, especially when there's not really a need for me to be, like in summer for me now. And in this video here, I've already talked about a few of the things I do that makes me enjoy being productive so that I can maintain it for the rest of my life. And you can learn exactly how to do this by watching the video.